Okay, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name's Oliver Jenkin. I'm the Senior Professional Development and Standards Manager here at the CDI. And today I'm very, very pleased to welcome Dr. Emma Bolger, Senior Lecturer in Career Guidance and Development at the University of the West of Scotland. And Emma is going to be talking about her forthcoming book, The Career Professional's Guide to Research: How to Plan and Deliver Excellence in Research. So I'm going to sign off in a minute and let Emma speak to you all and explain what the book covers and why it might be a useful read for you for your CPD. Please, as Emma messaged you, add any comments in the chat, and there will be some time at the end to deal with those. So, without any further ado, I will hand you over to Emma.
Great. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you, everyone who's joining us live. We're also recording this as well as it going out live today. So hello to everybody who's here with us right now, but also to everybody who's watching this back in future. I know there's a number of registrants who aren't with us just yet, but it is lovely to see a list of names that some of whom I recognise, some of whom I don't. Lovely to be with you here today talking about my new book. So this is a meet the author session. I know some of you, so I feel like I'm not meeting some of you for the first time. But for those of you who've never met me, that's me there on screen, looking as we all do in these photos, a little bit awkward about having done something that I now need to talk about having done. I'm really interested in why you're all keen to engage in research. So if anybody does want to chat, like put anything in the chat as we go through. I am keen to find out still why you're interested in research, as may others who are here today, and why you're interested in research. If you're already working on a project, please feel free to share that in the chat as well. There may well be somebody who's here today who is interested in a similar or related topic and might be keen to link up with you. It's never too early to start chatting with others about any project ideas you might have. Um, it'd be really interesting to get a sense of whose research has been something that's inspired you or been memorable. If there's anyone who's a researcher that you look up to and think of their work as being really relevant to what you do, and maybe you'd like to emulate that or be part of that same kind of conversation. Any piece of research that's been memorable to you, it'd be great if you could share that as we go through as well. Don't feel you have to, but if there's anything that you really would like to say in the chat, please do share it with us all. Um, so the general gist of what I'm talking about today is this question about why should we engage and be keen to conduct research ourselves. It's not, and I should mention, kind of say this as well. While I've written a book that's, a guide, a handbook, a dip in and out book about how to do research, I'm also really keen for people to read the book and think about how they engage with research that other people have undertaken. It's not just about um, the research that you might do, but it's also about us being better at accessing, engaging with, and using research that others have undertaken. So while I'm talking about doing the research, I'm also thinking about you being part of that whole research conversation and how you use the research of others and build that into the work that you do. Um, really important to me as well is that I wanted to really write a book that is for all of us across the career sector. We use that term career development professional to define us all within the audience. And it's a really, the career development professional, or as I use in the book, a career practitioner led research. Like I talk about career practitioner led research, and I think of all of the readers of this book in that bubble. It's all encompassing. It's quite a flexible term, and describes any piece of work that is undertaken by professionals who are engaged in career work. So you've got other terms that you might hear about, and again, this is what I'm really keen to do through this book and the work that goes on around it. Is I do want to try and demystify research processes. I do want to kind of remove barriers that anyone may perceive to be there. I'm not going to say that there are always barriers to getting involved with research. It can sometimes be something that you just feel like, actually, this isn't for me, when quite rightly it should be. So it's about kind of making things a bit more accessible. So you might hear other things like practitioner engaged research, practitioner inquiry is a term that I quite like, practice-based research, applied research, practitioner-driven research, all of those kind of terms are the sort of field that we're working in as well. So it's a range of definitions that are used across professions, so it's not just the career development profession, and it's just this field where, and I've put a list of people there on screen who can do research, who can do the type of research that we're talking about in being practitioner led, and it's just inspired by, it's led by, or conducted by what we would consider to be frontline staff. If we use an aged metaphor, it'd be people at the coal face. It's about those of us who are working day to day and interacting with the clients that really drive our work. So lots of people there in that list, and I hope that everyone here today can find a home for themselves underneath one of those. I'm not going to say bullet points, the more sort of finger points, but one of those that hopefully chimes with you in terms of where you are in your work. So briefly mentioned this already. Why did I write the book? I wanted to write a book that wasn't intimidating for anyone, no matter what stage they were at in their research. So if you are feeling tentative about putting your first steps towards conducting research, or if you've done a bit and you think you'd like to get a bit better at it, it's a book for you. I felt that a lot of the research material, the literature out there, is almost a bit heavy for getting started when your frame of mind is quite often, that's really interesting. I think I and others should really know a bit more about that, and I'd like to unpick it a bit. That's where I'm at, and that's where I think many of us are at when we're working with clients. We simply want to be able to get involved and engage with practitioner-led research. So absolutely about the demystifying of processes, the sense that there are certain steps that we all have to go through to undertake and engage with and do research. It is about the doing and getting it done, and it's not about sitting back and letting yourself be intimidated by or overwhelmed by what seem to be formal processes. I really, really want to encourage all frontline practitioners to better understand their unique position, that as somebody who's working with clients on a regular basis, on a client group that might be of any age and any background, there's so many individuals that we're all working with. I want professionals to see how uniquely positioned you are to be able to collect data on the work that you're doing, on the work that others are doing, to ensure that what you're doing is meaningful, that you're doing things in an ethical way, and that you're doing the most impactful research projects that you can. And I also want people to think about, it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to find a home in the most, renowned journal for career guidance. It doesn't have to be something that has a big audience at a conference for it to be a good and meaningful piece of research that has impact and makes a difference. And that's what's most important about research, is that it makes a difference in the context in which it needs to make a difference. And I want to really help people develop the research skills that they have. And that is also about not just conducting research yourself, but being critical of the work that other people are doing, being able to unpick and understand and explore and apply what other people have done. And I think underpinning all of this as well is that I have a sense that for the research that we see published to really feel accessible, it much more has to reflect and represent the workforce, the career development workforce, and improving the diversity of people who are conducting research and making that a broader scope in so many ways, and really encouraging as many people as possible to get to be part of the research agenda within career development is you know is good. It can only improve, what we've got across the whole landscape by having a much more diverse and all-encompassing body of practitioners conducting research, as is only going to be an improvement overall. So a wee summary. What are the benefits of you engaging in research? And first of all, as I've just said, the contribution that you make as a frontline practitioner is so important. The the research that you do is, generally can feel quite detached. And this is something I've picked up as a senior lecturer when I've been doing my own research as well. Um, it can be very easy to feel quite dismissive of and I've been in that position myself. You might look at research that's coming out from a university, or people who are, renowned researchers, and you may get that sense of, oh, but that's all well and good, but they're not out there with us doing this day to day. That disconnect between what happens in the front line to what happens within a research environment. And we have generally moved much closer towards co-developed research projects. So when we're engaged in research, I can give you an example of this from my own research practice I've been involved in. As some of you may know, a big project over the last few years looking at the value of career guidance for individuals who have dementia, who have early onset dementia and are still working, and maybe career guidance could, and I would say should, be part of that holistic approach to supporting somebody as they go through diagnosis. And involved in the research have been practitioners, and also have been individuals who are experiencing dementia. So we've had a very a co-produced landscape, and this is really important that we do have more of that collaboration taking place. So it's really important to help to build those stronger links between our profession and academics and more broadly policymakers. And you can do that much more effectively when you've got a broad range of stakeholders involved. It's a great form of CPD in general. We don't, in the career development profession, we don't gain our qualification, go off and practice, and that's it. We are continuously involved in professional development for all the right reasons. We know that practice ideas change over time. We know that we see best practice evolving, and also we know that knowledge improves over time. We're always keen to engage with that, and engaging with research is a really good example of CPD, not just in terms of gaining knowledge, but also in terms of developing your own practical and professional skills. I've put just a short list there at the bottom, or not a short list, but a short list of what might be part of practitioner-led research. And it's important that, when I talk about research by practitioners, I'm not just talking about research that's on or about your practice. Your topics can and should encompass more than what happens in individual or group career guidance, although focusing directly on tools, techniques, methods of career information, advice and guidance, very much valid and interesting research projects, but you shouldn't feel that that's where you're constrained to just because that's what you're doing. There are so many other subtle pieces of information that are coming to you all day, every day when you're working, and that might inspire you to conduct some research. So I've just put a list there of what your research may involve, to get you thinking about what, if there is anything that you are keen to be looking at yourself and what that might be. But it's often practitioner-led research, often reviewing, reviewing or redeveloping interventions and thinking about how they might apply in different audiences and those sorts of things. So reviewing or reevaluating or reworking something for a new client group. It can be very much about, in frontline practice, about evaluating the tools, the methods, the processes you use. Is there a way of streamlining this? Could this be more effective? We can be in environments where we really do have to justify the work that we do, and being able to produce really solid, robust evaluations of methods and processes can be really helpful. And that is a form of research, evaluating your practice on a day-to-day basis in that way. It may be that you've done some reading, you've maybe read an edition of Career Matters or the NICET Journal or one of the other professional publications, and you've seen something, you thought, do you know, that's a good approach, and I wonder if I could use that in my workplace. Testing ideas that have been proposed by other people is a great way of engaging with research. Bringing something new in, trying something different, and just evaluating that as you go, these changes in processes, all of that your inquiry into those things as they go along is research, and we need to be much more robust in how we describe that in that way. Um, and you also, as practitioners working directly with the general public, you are going to be that first port of call to be able to pick up on trends and new happenings that are perhaps not yet being recorded either in responses through policy. They may not yet be making it into the theory or wider literature that's out there. So you're there. I often think of, the first person, if you're going into a career office, or a high street office, or in school, um, you're almost like a triage system for people's challenges, how they are, what are they experiencing in their day-to-day lives, what is happening that's having an impact on their career. And you get that first before anybody else, when it's there for you to think about, to know. And you'll have all of these gut feelings. You have so much knowledge and experience of working with clients in that way, as that first contact point, that you're ahead of the game in so many ways. You're ahead of where we are in academia, in more broader kind of theoretical research, because you're seeing it at the very start. Um, and I would summarize it as any practice informed research. It's about undertaking an effective inquiry into something that leads to progress. And as I say, that doesn't have to be huge. It may just be a streamlining of a service. It may be something that you've learned from your context that maybe you think this could be helpful to others. It's all about progress. It's all about helping us all to move forward together. And I've touched upon that, just about that point of view being that first point of contact. But as career professionals, you are in a unique position to be involved in research. Your perspective, that has come very much from frontline practice, adds what I can only describe as, real immense value to the research landscape. Practitioner-led research is vital. Um, and while collaboration is good, and working with practitioners and drawing on their knowledge, for example, if you're asked, if you might be surveyed about what's your thoughts and feelings on this, that's great, but that's someone else's idea. Someone else has come out to you with an idea and said, I think this is what we should be exploring. And you might have a different perspective on that. As well as being a research participant yourself, you may actually start thinking, well, it'd be better if they looked at this or they looked at that. There's no reason why you can't be the person that also looks at this and also looks at that. You've got a perspective that's hugely beneficial to people who don't have the insights that you have. And I will say this time and again, you may feel daunted. It may all look like there are structures and systems in place that you're outside of. You should not feel daunted. You should absolutely not feel intimidated. You are doing a lot of what you're doing already. It demonstrates and utilizes skills that can be transferred into conducting research. And in the book, I've got a lot of like skills analysis and thinking about the core kind of occupational standards that we expect in terms of knowledge and skills for somebody working in the career development sector do transfer well to undertaking research, not directly in a lot of ways, but you can adapt your knowledge and experience and be able to put that in a new context. So why else, did I really write this book? And this comes down to wanting everyone to, it's not that there's tons of hard and fast rules, but I want you to be able to conduct research that is not going to have someone pointing a finger at and claiming is not good enough. And there are simple ways to really be able to demonstrate to others that you have the skills and knowledge and experience to do good research. And it's a suite of professional skills, practical skills that are really important to enable you to conduct research, to get started, and to engage in the whole process, from planning through to sort of the execution of what you're doing, to analysis, to sharing it afterwards. And there's some simple kind of baseline expectations for what you must be able to do. You need to have a reason and you need to have relevance for what you're doing. You need to not only have that, but you need to be able to convey that well. And this is where I think people start to get intimidated and daunted by things, because it's that step between, I've got a great idea, I don't know how I get it there, because there's this murky landscape in the middle where I've got to do all the right things to get it out there. And it's all the right things that I hope my book will get you thinking about and working towards. It's that being able to stand up to scrutiny, being able to be as as upstanding as everybody else in any room, and being able to say, I've done some research and it's good and this is why. Um, it's about ensuring the ethical compliance and being able to demonstrate that even if you're outside of a formal research structure like a university or a research organization, you can still follow ethical guidelines. You can still demonstrate the truth of your work through other ways of evidencing that. So overall intention was hopefully to create a good read for you, that you can pick the book up and go cover to cover and feel like you better understand research and you can see the process from start to finish. But it's also a kind of a dip in and out as and when you need it book. So if you want to come back and think about any gaps in your knowledge, it's there for you to be able to just have that, hopefully as well, in my voice, which is, instructional, but hopefully a bit, happy and smiley as we go through that as well, because it doesn't all have to be formal and heavy going, which a lot of research books can be. So the book gives you, I'd say, a framework to help you to plan and conduct your research, and then promote your research and further your skills after you've completed a project if you want to. Um, so very much you can read it cover to cover, dip in and out of the sections that you need later to support your research. And we've also put together some easily downloaded resources that you can go onto the Trotman website and take them down, print them off, or use them in whatever format you prefer, to help you work through things. So you've got some good practical tools to use as you go through. Um, so I'm going to hand over to yourselves now and ask if there's any questions that you'd like to ask me about the book, about getting started with research, anything that you feel daunted about, or anything that you would like to know a wee bit more about, or just any questions at all. I'm not here just to talk at you today. There's a whole book where you can hear from me if you wish to. I don't know if Ollie wants to kind of field any questions my way. If you just want to do a hands up, that would be great. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat to see what you've been saying.
Yes, so thanks, Emma. We do have a question here from Sarah Blackford. It says, I have a question lined up. I did my research previously as part of my CEI master's thesis at Warwick Uni, but how do you get ethical approval for your research and access to research papers if you're outside of the academic system? So if you're working in private practice, or if you're a school-based careers advisor or something similar.
Really, really good question. And I do cover this. A, a concern that I would say many people have. So there are ways, first of all, to evidence your ethical standards would be the way I would talk about it as well. So you can have things publicly available like a data management plan. There's free to access software out there. So as well as following ethical guidelines, looking at, I'm a big fan of codes of ethics, and you can use them to create a parameter for how you're going to structure your research and be quite visible about what having a research plan in place. And I would say if you're struggling, if you're thinking, there's a research paper there I can't get my hands on, you can generally you can use things like Google Scholar. You can generally get a sense of what's about a topic. There's a few really good resources out there now. There's lit maps if you want to put a topic in, and they can you can easily get a list of papers that you might want to access. Now, number one, if you see a research paper that's been written by an author and you'd really like a copy of it and it's behind a firewall, contact the author. In most cases, those of us who've published in an academic journal anywhere will be delighted to get an email from someone who's interested in their work and be able to provide it to you directly. So if you're finding it difficult to get hold of anything, do contact the author directly would be my number one tip. You might also get a fruitful conversation out of that at the start, so don't feel like people are in ivory towers and shouldn't be approached. There is some really good research out there now that is open access. So the British Journal of Guidance and Counselling, for example, the NICET journal, there are shifts now to research being made more widely available, so that you don't have to be somebody who, and particularly useful in professional roles like professional practice type roles as ours are, that you no longer have to be going through these hoops. A good way, if you think that you are doing something that is fairly heavy going and will need some pretty robust sources. It's plenty of us working within university organizations, and that includes people who are working in careers teams within universities as well, not necessarily academics, but people who have access to all of the same library resources as elsewhere. People are generally keen to collaborate. So if you've got a great idea and you think, well, I could just do with being able to access this and that, partner up with somebody, approach somebody who's in a university and may have the same interests as you, and they will be able to access things for you. So it's not something you have to do in isolation or in a silo. So ways around it. And similarly, if you think it's something that is going to need um, fairly, sometimes when you need maybe more investment to do something, or for it to be valid, you may need to run it through a formal ethics committee. Again, partnering with somebody who's in one of those institutions is a great way into it. And they will be, I'm sure, in most cases, very keen to partner up with somebody. Um, the You don't always need to have formal ethical approval for research is something else as well that I talk about in the book. The fact that you don't necessarily need to go through one of these big ethics reviews committees to conduct good research. As long as you can evidence that you are following clear principles of ethical research, then that's good enough in many cases. So you might want to signpost, for example, that you're a member of the Career Development Institute, and in all that you do, you're following the CDI Code of Ethics. And I've written about this before in Career Matters and elsewhere, but again, I've done a fresh map in this book of where the Code of Ethics actually relates to research principles. So if you are talking about the fact that you're a CDI registered professional, you're on the CDI register, you're following the CDI Code of Ethics, in everything else that you do, you can signpost that as part of your research as well, and list that as an example of where you're meeting ethical parameters in everything that you do, and all of those points extend beyond that. I've done it as well for the ADCAS Code of Ethics as well, because I'm just going to pick up the book here because I was looking at this just earlier today. But it's that evidencing of key principles, and how you bring that, and this is why I've done quite a few downloadable tools for the book as well, so you can kind of list this off and apply it each time to the research that you've conducted. So I'm just going to say, for example, the CDI Code of Ethics, if we look at accountability, for example, as one of the ethical kind of points of the ethical code, it's the it's having almost the code of ethics there in when you're doing say you're doing a focus group, or you're doing an interview with somebody, just being able to hand that to them as here's the principles that I'm following. I'm trying to just look for a call, like confidentiality. In terms of research, if you think of confidentiality in the code of ethics, is about members will respect the privacy of individuals, and so on, confidential information to be handled as appropriately as it should be. And it's just that research data collected in line with data management. So you might want to say, when you're sending out a participant information sheet, you can signpost the legislation, you signpost that you'll be handling data in line with the Data Protection Act. Same confidentiality as you'd expect to be applying to any clients. Just thinking about the principles of how you conduct your research will demonstrate that you're an ethical researcher. Inviting people are being invited in to be interviewed as part of your research, ensuring that same safe space, the confidential environment, all of that. If you need a PVG for the research that you're doing, making sure you've got that, or disclosure, depending whereabouts you are. So just being vocal about that. And it's almost, if you can conduct your research in the same way as, if I was going to be going through a formal ethics review to do this piece of research, what would I do? And it almost becomes evident in the way that you're going about it, the transparency with which you're going about your research, that will convince others that you're actually as robust as you should be. So lots of ways around it, without feeling you absolutely do not need to be within a university to feel like you can engage with all of this. So that was quite a long answer, but hopefully covers a few of those points.
Thank you very much, Emma. Sort of related question. I think this is more of a question about practicalities. Jackie Pickles is asking, how do people manage to combine research with employment when the research doesn't actually include like a research element within it? So I think that's probably the situation of most practitioners, unless they happen to be practitioner researchers like some people are.
Absolutely. I can tell you now, being an academic within a university doesn't mean either that you're going to have anything like enough time to conduct your research. Um, People who have a research remit are often, find that much of their time, particularly when you're doing something that's got a frontline element, the priority goes to the client in front of you, or, for example, for me, to the student in front of you, will always take priority over your research project that's happening behind that. So totally appreciate that. When I surveyed practitioners and they said, what's the barrier to you being able to get your research done? It's time. It is without any doubt. It's time. It's pressures, business need, all of that comes into it. And the honest answer is, I mean, I think, and there's, I can see somebody in the chat today, who's already said this to me, and the question was, how have you found time to write a book? And I genuinely don't know. I just had to prioritize it and make it the thing that I got done above all else. I if it just comes back to time management and carving out as much space as you can to do something. Really doing a SWOT analysis about, you know um, what skills are you lacking, what do you need. And when people talk about the threats to them being able to conduct research, it always comes down to time. It always comes down to, I've got this going on and that going on. I've got commitments, I've got care and responsibilities, I've got so many other things going on at the same time. It is about carving out time and being hugely protective about that time. It's about being realistic about the time something will take. And it is about valid being just like protecting it as CPD time. You've got, for many people, you might not have a research element in your role, but you certainly will have some CPD time in there, and your research can fulfill that. For example, if you really do need to contextualize it for a manager, and to put into an annual sort of personal development plan as well. But it's difficult, and as I would be the first to tell you, it is hugely difficult to carve out that time to do something. If you can apply for any funding to do some research, that's usually a good lever as well, to say, well, I've got a bit of money to backfill my time to conduct this project. There are some funds out there now that you can bid into each year. If there's anyone from AdCast on here today, please do share the wee pots that we know about through that. Um, that can be a really good lever if you can justify as well, to if you can feel like you've got a work-based piece of research, to try and make an argument for getting some time out to look for that within the workplace can be a good way to get started. But yeah, it is a very, very big challenge. So yeah, it's not easy, Jackie, and I'd be the first to tell you that it has been a challenge for me personally to get to this point, because of having to do that whole bargaining and negotiating to get the time to be able to do something that you actually really enjoy.
Okay, thanks, Emma. That was a very thorough answer. Sarah Mayfield has a quick question. She's asking if your book would be useful to her to assist with the learning that she has to do for her coaching professional qualification.
I imagine so. There's nothing to, as I say, research. Not, I mean, the book is not just about conducting research yourself, but it's certainly about how to unpick and analyze the research of others and help you to pinpoint good research projects that are relevant to you. So absolutely. I think it's not just about you doing it. It's about you being able to look at the work of others, and, to be able to be quite critical. You may, as you start to look at the research that's out there, maybe not about career work, but not necessarily by career practitioners, you may find that you become, I'm not going to say scathing, but a little bit more critical about what else is out there. So being able to just improve your knowledge of research and the type of research that's out there is only ever going to be a good thing as well.
Thank you very much. And just one more question. This is from Sarah Blackford, and she's asking how you would recommend finding a mentor if somebody was deciding to do some research.
Well, I mean, if you've got, I've certainly benefited from mentors in my time. I have just found someone whose work I've really enjoyed and asked them for a chat, asked them how they've got going. Try to find people who are, and this, we're a helpful profession. I think that, but it's not like we're in a very structured and explicitly hierarchical and rigid profession. We're creative, we're all in the career sector, and generally people in the career sector are keen to help out and support others. If you've got someone that you would just like to have a chat with about getting started on research, and I'm thinking of all the colleagues that I know who work in universities, we would be more than happy to have a chat. We're careers people, we like having a chat, right? We can talk, right? That's one thing, people can do very, very effectively. That's, a certain, we talk about the traits and characteristics of people working in careers. We all like a good chat. So I would certainly just, if you've got someone, I would just fire them an email, track them down, fire them an email, explain where you're coming from, what it is you'd like to get a bit of support with, be very clear and direct about what it is that you need. Um, some of it can be about just the nuts and bolts of getting started. And also, we all do have gaps in our knowledge. I have really had to work hard at improving my understanding, for example, of quantitative data and analysis and methods and measurements of data. Because I'd always been within kind of a humanities kind of qualitative like background prior to actually undertaking research, and I made an explicit choice to do research that required required quantitative analysis, because I knew that was where my skills were lacking, and I felt that I could be scrutinized particularly within academia, for not having that knowledge. And I did go to people who had much stronger quants knowledge than me to kind of improve my skills in that area, and ask for a bit of support and guidance as to how to get started on that myself. So um, just find someone who you think you're going to be able to learn from. There's someone whose research that you looks up to. I can see, Julia for earlier up in the message in there from Julia Yates. There's plenty of us within universities, either Warwick, Derby, right across the board. Those of us who've been around for a while, and we'd be more than happy to get an email from somebody, or a chat, a LinkedIn, or a various other social media platforms query. Absolutely fine just to approach people. If you think there's someone, someone will be honest with you, like, I'm snowed under, I've not got time, but try me in a couple of months. We will always do our best to help.
Thanks, Emma. And also, before I forget, anybody interested in another free resource to keep up to date with research and career development should really check out the research repository, which you can access through the CDI website. So our research manager, Stephen Plimmer, has done a great job of sorting it into different common topics in career development. And that will be a really good place to start if you're at a loss as to where to begin. So thank you very, very much, Emma, for a really interesting and informative talk. We are planning to have in a way, a kind of a follow-up session looking more broadly at careers in career development research in December. So that will include Emma, it will include two other researchers, so keep an eye on our training and events calendar for that. If you're interested in buying Emma's book, that's available through the Trotman website, and if you would like to contact Emma, her details are being shared on the screen now. So
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to hear from anyone, or, connect with me in any way, shape, or form. There is links. There'll be, if anybody wants the slide decks. There is a CDI discount at the moment. We should highlight, Ollie, if anyone buying the book from
absolutely.
the Trotman website, 25% off if you're a CDI member. And I've shared the Amazon and Waterstones links there, just in case anyone's got a voucher burning a hole in their pocket. They might prefer to purchase it there directly without the discount. But there is a CDI discount at the moment for anybody who wants it.
That's fair enough. Well, thank you very much again. Thanks to all of you for attending. Keep an eye on the training and events calendar. We've got a lot of great sessions lined up for the rest of this term. And for now, I will sign off and say thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.